Matt Roberts with D1 Ticker and Coaches.wire at the NFCA Convention. Here it's home for us, home field advantage, Louisville, Kentucky. Happy to be joined by Kuhlmeyer from UMBC.
Yeah.
Sixth season coming up with the Retrievers. Yeah. 4 straight NCAA tournaments. Of course, we didn't have one for softball in 20. You guys just came out of a rules session before you joined us. So give us some background. What's going on?
Oh, it was quite the controversy. It seemed like sometimes. No, it's
obstruction.
Obstruction rule. That's it's on everybody's mind right now. It's why those orange juice and obstruction. No, I think it was a great actual clarification on a few things for us because our game is growing so fast right now and it's accelerating at crazy levels, and ESPN wants us so desperately to fill so many time slots on their major platforms, during the season, on top of being on Plus. And just some of these new rule changes not only is going to help keep us in smaller windows to help accelerate our viewership on TV, but also make our game safer. And clarify some things for our umpires and for our kids, like the obstruction rule. It's always been a big thing here in the last few years. It's been hilarious sometimes and very frustrating sometimes on how this is going and what they're going to call and not call, everything. But I think we got to a good point now where our kids feel they can still be themselves, play defense, make plays. Our catchers now don't feel like they're stuck in the mud.
Right.
They can't move anymore. So I think they've done a really good job of doing it. And they did a really good job this morning, clarifying some things with the new action clocks and new pitching rules, obstruction and all that.
Which of those for you are you going like, okay, it's going to be interesting to see how this integrates into the game, how our team has to respond to it, how our kids have to be aware of it? Which one maybe is top of mind for you?
So I think the action clock's going to be the biggest one because as a small Division I school, probably like same budgets as some D2s, D3s, and all that stuff sometimes. We're not going to have the ability to have the action clock just yet until they make it mandatory. So it's just going to be interesting to see, how umpires are going to get used to having to, do the new technology on their hip. They don't have to constantly push that button when the pitcher gets the ball. Knowing the precise timing and all that. And just as coaches, players, and all that, being used to a new timing clock like that, like we try to use in the fall, but we're using it, to count down in our head. And are the umpires going to have the whereabouts to constantly hit that button on that hip at the right time to keep the clock rolling? And our kids, especially as batters, sometimes when they get a bad call. You play ball. You know how it is.
I never complained.
I never complains, right? So, a hitter, the hitter gets a little bit of a disadvantage. I think it gives the pitchers a little bit more of an advantage, unfortunately. But it is good for the game to help speed the game up a little bit more, continue to make it faster and more exciting and all that. But I think it does give our hitters a slight disadvantage from that standpoint of when they get a back call and they have to clear their mechanism.
That's right, immediately.
Yeah, immediately.
Yeah.
Now they don't have the extra seconds to clear the mechanism anymore. Now they have to get out, get the signal, get in before the 10 seconds comes up, and so it's going to get taught. It's going to take a lot of getting used to for for our hitters, for everybody. But I think all in all, what the rules committee's done here lately has been a good thing for the sport.
You noted earlier the windows with which ESPN has to work with for softball specifically, but really programming at large for the network, and being tight in that window and producing an entertainment product that's fast-paced. We know softball is, and volleyball is going on right now, so I'm thinking about the same thing for volleyball, of course.
Yeah.
But educating the general viewer, and not viewers that are your parents who've been watching their kids play for 10 plus years, but the average viewer does want a really compact product. So these slight changes really matter, I think, for the continued upward trajectory of the sport.
Oh, absolutely. It's the partnership with ESPN, when I was on the rules committee, a long time back, and this was on the front end when ESPN really wanted to grab a hold and really start trying to put us on more and more platforms and more streaming and everything, and it's just grown from there. So the partnership with them and just everything that we did on the rules committee when I was on it to now what they're doing now, it's just it's been amazing for our sport. Just from a viewership standpoint, bringing more fans in, whether it's young women, whether it's an older generation of person who maybe was a baseball fan, now has a daughter or a granddaughter, and they get to watch the game with them and they look at the product and it's like, wow, this is an amazing product. I wish I would have known about this sooner, kind of thing. I hear about this all the time from people, and I just love where our game is going. The opportunities for young women is just insane right now. From whether it's travel ball, there's so many teams across the country now with opportunities for that. And even though there's an expense to it, but there's so many opportunities for them to play either locally, where they can travel across the country. Our partnership with MLB, with the NFCA, with MLB, the academies that they're opening up, and just going to those underserved communities and giving opportunities for those young women to have a positive experience in the sport and exposing them to the sport. It's crazy just where our sport is going right now.
Another area of rule change that we've experienced the last couple of years as we zoom out a little bit is the recruiting landscape, right? So different timelines now that we can talk to prospective student athletes, come to campus, commit, etc. How do you feel about that so far? Is it still a work in progress? Where's it sit?
It's a work in progress still. I think we all have good intentions of what we want the recruiting calendar to look like. And we all know we don't want to recruit 8th graders. We all know that. It was a crazy wild, wild west back in, 10 years ago. And so we're definitely glad that we've figured out a way to, do this the right way, to not have to put so much pressure on kids who are 12, 13 years old to like try to commit to LSU, or to Alabama. And nothing against, I'm not saying that they did that. I'm just saying, just giving an example. Those are kids' dream schools. But I think we all have great intentions, and we're all trying to still figure out what the best is for us right now. I think that September 1st junior year contact is great. Now we're talking about how can we make some slight adjustments to potentially have contact with them a little bit earlier just by phone, or be able to talk to them maybe just a little bit sooner so we can get to know them a little bit more before we can start actually getting them on campus on September 1, because a lot of people want to get those kids there. They know they want them. They're talented, good kids coming to camps for years. But the only way they get to talk to them is when they're at camps, and they can't have recruiting conversations with them. So I think maybe some slight adjustments with the timing of when we can actually do it, whether it's in July, August 1st, right the day after our recruiting calendar ends. I think it's going to allow us to be able to have some conversation with kids before September 1 about getting to know who they are, their dreams, aspirations, all the things that they are looking for, get to know their families a little bit better, and then on September 1 or whenever the dead period ends around September 1, we have a better idea who these people are before we start actually bringing them on campus. What we do with my program, when September 1 hits, we don't make any offers to come on campus, any of that stuff. So we get to know them in that way already. So we're like having those conversations and having a few before we actually invite them on campus. We make sure we're getting the right people that we think feel good for, we feel right about for our program. But I think for everybody, having what we call the slight runway time before September 1 is going to be beneficial for all of us.
Recruiting process, certainly a topic of continued conversation. Now you have a student athlete on campus. She's had a great freshman year, sophomore year, junior year.
Yeah.
How's the transfer portal impacting you? What's your sort of general feedback on, boy, if we could put some guardrails around this, or are you completely for it? And listen, you yourself have complete autonomy of where you coach next year. Maybe the kids should have complete autonomy of where they play. How's that impacting you?
So it's been pretty positive for us. Have we been, delved into it a lot? No, we have not. But the young ladies that we have brought into our program over the years have been, awesome people, and they fit our program. What our morals and values of our program. They fit our academics. We're a high academic school. They fit that. So we've been very careful of how we're doing that, because you can see a kid in their statistics. You can go maybe find some video on Synergy and go pull up ESPN Plus and see some.
But how do you do this fit thing so quickly? In the normal recruiting process, you have time. Right, but we're talking about a matter of days in some cases, hours in some
days.
cases.
Right. So you're gonna have, for us, we don't go very quickly with it. If we don't get a kid, we don't get a kid.
Okay.
And what we're going to do, we're going to be, very proactive talking to coaches, that even if they're former coaches of their schools, talking travel ball coaches. We call the high school coach. We try to get some background on their families, because we don't want to I'll tell our kids whoever bring, kids in, we don't want to have, bad citizens in our program. We also don't want to have bad parents, in our program as well, because they're also a huge part of our program. So we try to do all we can to get a clear picture of who this person is, not only from the athletic side, the academics, that's easy to see, but just to make sure we get the full 360-degree view of who they are as a person, who their families are, and if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. If we lose them because we took too much time,
wasn't meant to be, right?
Yeah.
In a diamond sports term, what can be your expectation of what your batting average is on transfers? Are you satisfied if you hit? I mean, we all would be satisfied hitting 500 in real life. But I mean, and it's the same with recruiting. Talent selection is really hard. Right. And figuring out if they're the right fit for your program. But have you found thus far that it is much harder through the transfer portal to find that right kid than in the normal recruiting process?
Absolutely. It absolutely is. It's just the process of being able to have them on campus, and you're out recruiting all summer, trying to find the windows to be on campus, to be, to meet with these kids like and their families and get to know them, the best you can. Like we're talking about through this process, it's difficult, and it's difficult for all these schools. Everybody's going to be trying to rush to get that get that stud right off the portal, no matter what size school you are. So it is tough. The portal's been great. It's been a positive thing, like you're saying, for coaches. We can, the next opportunity for us is there, and we're going to take it. We can go. So I agree that the young women should have that opportunity as well. If it's not the right fit, they feel like it's the right fit. New coach come in, or they, maybe they don't feel like it's the right fit from an academic standpoint that they thought it would be. I think it's awesome. The one thing that I wish could be put in place a little bit more for, better for kids is the education side, because right now you're seeing like in Division I football, or like in just football overall right now. Apparently there was like 1,200 kids that went in the portal.
First 24 hours, right?
First 24 hours.
Right.
Like, how many of those kids actually are going to be landing at a spot next year?
There's a portion that won't.
Yeah,
right.
There's less than 50%.
Right.
Some people say it's like 30% for our sport, that at all levels that actually move on to.
So you're saying educating the outgoing student athlete that just because you go in the portal doesn't mean there's a home for you.
Doesn't mean there's a home for them.
And in softball, do you think those who don't find a home, they just become regular students, or
Yeah, a lot of them just become regular students, and they had all the good intentions potentially of wanting to go play ball to continue their career, just did not work out where they were at for whatever that reason is for them.
So what's the solution?
Yeah,
on the education piece?
The education piece to me is like this: our compliance people, even the coaches, they just need to be more upfront and honest and let what this actually looks like, and not just give them like, well, you can go in the transfer portal, here's the rules, here's the windows, all this stuff, but actually educate them on precisely what the numbers are, and like have the research, because I know the research is out there, because we know that whether it's less than 50%, some people say 30% of all division softball players that went in the portal, they found a home. Whether they wanted to continue their careers or not, the high majority of them did, and just could not find a spot, because there's no despite that there's hundreds of schools out there, not every school has an opening. And so that reduces it. So I just wish there would be some education on that side of it to give them the clearest picture possible of what this is going to look like, so hopefully they can make the decision of, oh, maybe this is the best place for me.
And that's a solution, it sounds like you're saying, is more so an institutional solution, not
necessarily an NCAA solution.
But maybe it's a conference-wide initiative.
Yeah, maybe it's a conference-wide initiative, or NCAA, just stepping up and saying, you have to do this as part of your education to tell them what what the rules are. You have to give them this education piece.
You got here to Louisville on Tuesday, which was the same day Charlie Baker sent his memo across college athletics that, of course, has received a ton of interest, feedback already, curiosity on what it's going to mean for everybody at all levels of the Division I landscape and otherwise. What's the conversation been here at the convention? What are your initial reactions?
Well, it's been interesting, because not everybody's been able to see it. And everybody here is like we're people up on stage are like, you need to read Charlie Baker's memo. So everybody's still like, what are you talking about? What is Charlie Baker's memo? So we're all like trying to get the highlights of what exactly what was on there. I just say right now it's such a 50,000 foot view of what this is going to be, and like nothing. Kind of the few people that actually delve into it, kind of put people in a little bit of a panic, I guess, in a way, a little bit, but but everybody here is still trying to figure out what those are and what it's going to look like. We all have our ideas of like what the future is going to look like, whether it's NIL, whether it's student athlete experience, like the separation potentially of Power 5 schools to Group of 5 schools and smaller mid majors, whatever whatever that's going to be. It's such a 50,000 foot view right now, and we all have our ideas of what it could be like and what the future is going to look like, but. Right now it's just actually talking to somebody right before I came in here. We were just chatting about it, and it's like, whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and right now we just don't know what that's going to look like, so we can't freak out about it currently.
I feel like for softball, baseball, Olympic sports, I've been thinking, what's the worst case scenario? I have trouble believing there's a model where institutions don't support Olympic sports underneath Power 5. And there's a variety of, the litigation is at an all-time high, of course, so I'm no legal expert, so not trying to comment on that. But you talk about the increase in participation and interest in softball specifically. I have a real hard time believing that as a enrollment driver, as a marketing vehicle, as a career development tool that institutions understand what college athletics are for many student athletes, and for the enhancement to the campus life.
Yeah.
Gosh, maybe I'm really blinded and biased about how valuable that is for all parties involved, but I struggle thinking that won't survive in some way.
Yeah, that's kind of the conversation right now, right? We've been talking about this for 5, 10 years, like whatever the first thoughts of the separation of, the Power Fives from everybody else, what will that look like for everybody? And, being in the thing part of Charlie's memo is talking about what that, that could be something that happens. And we were just having a conversation about like, what could the future of like smaller mid-majors look like? Right. Not the group of 5. The group of 5 probably be okay for the most part. But those conferences after that, the America East,
right.
The NEC, the AAC, those conferences like that, what is that going to look like for all of them? And we're like, the discussions right now is like, will our Olympic sport survive? Will softball survive?
Right.
And I think the question is going to be for all the individual schools from and at the conference level is like, how can we financially still do this when we lose March Madness? Mm-hmm. That's the biggest one. The biggest driver for all of us is like the March Madness money. Mm-hmm. So if like they have their own March Madness, we have our March Madness, can we still have enough, will we have enough, money there in the coffers to fuel the rest of the conferences and the schools and everything from that March Madness money if we have a separate national championship? Are we going to have that still? Because that's where most of the, where the income comes from for the NCAA and for the conferences comes from March Madness.
Right.
So what is that going to look like? Is that going to be able to fuel us to continue to compete at Division I where we can still do maybe crossovers with, Power 5 schools during the regular season? We have our own separate national championships. Great, that'd be awesome. I fear that maybe we might have to think about dropping down to Division II, Division III, lessen the travel, lessen the student athlete experience. That's why I worry about it. Student athlete experience at D2 and D3 is awesome. So it's nothing against that at all. It's just going to be a different experience for what, Division I athletes, coaches, and everything. What that's, what they're used to, and what they're, what they've been driving and striving for all, for their whole careers or their whole lives playing ball growing up to get to this point. So it's just going to be interesting what it looks like. What is that going to look like? There's 1,000 things that can go through your head, like what that could look like and what could happen. And there's also maybe it's just fear mongering too at the same time.
Right. Creating emotion to drive decisions.
Exactly.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Enjoy the rest of your time in the Derby City. We'll keep in touch.
Absolutely.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much.